Well, welcome to the Bed Podcast anyway, Sasha. So nice to be here.
Oh, we're starting. Yeah, cool.
This is the intro. This is how
And we're in.
we're in. Oh no, can I have that?
Oh, you need it?
Yeah. I've got quotes. I've got quotes that I've written down that I'm gonna.
You said to me about a quote.
Yeah.
I didn't do that.
You didn't think of one?
No, but I have got one right now.
Have you got one?
Yeah.
What's your quote? What's your favourite quote?
I feel like it's one that gets kind of shared quite a lot. And I think it goes like this. It's no measure of health to be well adjusted to a sick society.
Wait, say that one more time.
It's no measure of health to be well adjusted to a sick society.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what do you get from that? Like, what do you get from when you hear that?
So when we think about like what's normal, like it's normal to go to work and do a 9 to 5 in a job that you really dislike just so that you can pay off your mortgage in a place that you're not really too fond of and live a mediocre life because, well, that's normal. Or to eat food from the supermarkets which is poisoning you and has ingredients that is gonna give you a slow death. Am I going too extreme here?
No.
It's like, it's basically for me, it's everything that I don't want to be adjusted to.
Yeah.
I don't want to be adjusted to that way of life. Or
is that in some way like conforming or fitting into an idea or a concept of what like the reality of society is? Because you know what I mean? Like as soon as you say like I'm healthy by the standards of society, but that doesn't mean you're actually healthy.
Right.
That means you're just falling into a box that they've presented to you.
Yes.
And they go, you fit here.
Yeah, and take all these pharmaceutical drugs. It'll make everything better.
Yeah.
It's okay. You're not depressed because you hate your life. No, you are depressed because it's all in your head. So take these pills and it'll make it better. You don't need to change your environment.
It's funny you say that because I put out a video recently, a girl talking about how people say like my anxiety, my depression, and they like hold on to it. And then I shared it and a lot of people came at me saying like I can't change it, it's a chemical imbalance in my brain. And by saying that, you give all your power to one solution, which is like antidepressants and drugs, and that's the only way that I can be fixed from this. That's the only way that this can make me better because I have this imbalance. But they don't look at all the different elements and factors like your relationships, your health, your sleep, how much water you drink, who you're around, traumas you haven't addressed. Like all of these different elements make up how you're actually going to feel and how much actual serotonin you can put in your brain and healing yourself. But you say like everyone wants a quick fix, everyone wants to be fixed tomorrow or yesterday. And when people get put in a situation where they can put it down to an imbalance in their brain, it takes away the responsibility of them actually having to fix what needs to be fixed.
Yes.
Have you felt
Beautifully said.
Have you felt that where you maybe weren't like going too far the wrong way, but you felt like you needed to change something to be your true self and be really happy?
Yeah, many times. I, through like a period of my life where I was suicidal and depressed, and I remember going to the doctors and my psychotherapist and them saying, about antidepressants. And I was like, no, like I've spoken to people who have been on antidepressants as well, and them saying that it's numbed them and coming off them has been really difficult. And I'm also sure, that they were necessary maybe for certain people at certain points of their life. But for me, I was like, no, I just know that something needs to change. There needs to be lifestyle changes. And even now, if I get like maybe like suicidal ideation coming in, I'm like, no, okay, this is a compass. This is telling me now that I need to navigate somewhere else because something in my life isn't aligned. I'm not being truthful with myself somewhere. And so, I think that might answer your question.
Yeah. Like when you catch yourself out in those situations where you're like, this isn't me.
Yeah.
Like it is, but it's not. You start to, I guess, fine-tune your life decisions because you know you're going off course. And you're like, what's pushing me off course? Like what are the elements that are making me go this direction when I need to go that direction?
Yeah.
How have you come out of those points though? Like what have you found has been the best way to bring you out of feeling like that?
It's been like a process of many different things at different points of my life. I think like more recently, I know deep within myself about the temporary nature of everything. Because I've gone through these like rock bottoms and then come out the other end and then gone to a rock bottom and come out the other end, I'm like, oh, this is fine. Like, I know that this can be a couple of days and I can be feeling more joy again. And I do know, like in the past, I had to go through maybe like a lot more experimentation with understanding like what can help me through those really dark times.
You didn't have the tools.
I didn't have the
It's
tools.
like each rock bottom gives you a new tool.
Yeah, 100%.
The good thing about rock bottom though, everyone thinks it's the worst thing ever, but it's like you've got to start at some point. You need foundations. Like you need foundations to start working towards that better life, and like rock bottom gives you that because it's like, well, this is the catalyst to change. This is the place to change. Like you're not going to change if you're like halfway, because it's like it's almost better when things are as bad as they can be because it forces you to make them better. When something's like, when you're kind of in a bad relationship, when you're kind of a little bit unfit, when you're kind of drinking, it's all these things that you can, I guess, convince yourself are fine. But when it's shit is hit the fan and when it's the worst it can be, it's like, okay, this is a point in my life where I need to make it better. And that's at rock bottom. And that's when you need to start moving forward. When's the last time you felt rock bottom and how did you get out of it with your new tools?
Okay.
Sorry if that's opening up a fresh wound.
I'm like, which one do I want to choose? Most recent. I had some difficult times recently, but I wouldn't say they were my rock bottoms. I'd say a rock bottom for me was at the end of a relationship and finding out that they had been sleeping with somebody else. But my response to that was deeper than what was actually happening in front of me as well. Like the crying that I had was like from deep in the shower, just crying and crying and crying. And that could be maybe one of my rock bottoms where I found that it kind of ignited me into more healing because I was aware how deeply I was hurt, and then also why was I still kind of accepting relationships that weren't fully choosing me, that didn't have truth, where I couldn't express my needs or any of my needs were even being met. So it was really like, again, a catalyst to me understanding deeper how I show up in relationships, what relationships I'm attracting, and where did this all start anyway? And then that taking me back to my parents and the love that I was exposed to, and I use this love because it was a lot of pain, and therefore love equals pain. So if it's painful, then it's love, right?
How do you mean that? From like viewing your parents go through like painful love? Like, is that what you mean? Like that's what you saw?
Yeah, what I experienced with my mum. She had so many relationships that had domestic violence in. You know, I saw my mum being strangled in the corner of the room, and I'm trying to get him off her. instead of the masculine being the one that protects, it was the masculine, to me, was the one that hurts, that causes pain, and that was my example of what love was. You know, my mum would stay in relationships that were abusive, and then you can imagine how my mum was also loving herself and her low self-worth and her low self-love, and that being my example of what love is for self too.
Yeah, like unconsciously and consciously you would have felt both of that, like both of those ways of seeing love, but then also how you feel it or how you think you need to show up. How, like, when did you consciously realize that though, that was, because obviously seeing something like that and feeling it, you would go through life for a long time not understanding why you go for the people you go for or why you accept what you accept. Did you have a point when you became conscious of that and went, oh, wait a minute, I'm going for these people, or I'm accepting being treated this way? And when was the time that you kind of thought, okay, this isn't right, or this isn't what I need to do?
Again, I think it was a process for me of, like, each kind of event or thing that was happening. I want to be more specific. Like, I remember going to a casting, driving to a casting and being so worried that my boyfriend at the time would be disappointed in me, because if I were to miss my casting, then I'm not worthy of his love and he would be angry. And this was like another rock bottom where it kind of, instead of going to my casting, I drove past the hypnotherapy office and just looked at it. Just looked. And so that was like one moment where I was like, hang on, something's not right. What am I doing? Why am I feeling like this? And why am I so scared of my partner? And then that kind of that relationship I stayed in, but more and more, call it red flags, appeared. And
were you loving yourself at this point?
No, I wouldn't say I was loving myself. No. I don't think I could take care of myself, truly. Like, there were times where I just wouldn't eat because it wasn't the first thing that came to my mind. Like, oh, make sure that you've eaten. And so
where was your mind at in those points? Like you said, you didn't think about it. Like, what was the main focus? Making the person you're with happy. Like, their happiness came before yours. Like you said, if you didn't get this part, it was the disappointment in the person, not your own. To please another person, out of fear of abandonment. And that stemmed from seeing it with your mum. Yes, and feeling, and not even just feeling, being abandoned as a child in many moments. And as a teenager. What was the relationship like with your father? My dad was absent. He came in and out, but for the majority of my life he was absent. And I remember trying to call him in moments where, for instance, the incident with my mum and her ex-partner, who was strangling her, phoning my dad, hoping that he would be there on the other end, and there being no answer, just being an answering machine. And so that was also my example of a father, a masculine figure, was that they're not there when you need them. And now I'm so grateful for my dad, because he's going through his own healing journey, and I'm able to confront him with the things that I'm feeling, and he's able to hold that space. But at the time. When did you start trusting men, or do you trust men? Wow, that was a journey. Still is. And so one kind of like experience that comes to mind is I did a breathwork session with my breathwork teacher,
and she had a group of us, and we start going into the breathing, and then I hear the men breathe, and I'm like, I can't do it. It makes me feel disgusted, just the sound of men breathing. And so I went to walk out, and she came after me, and she was like, just sit with them, and just don't even close your eyes, don't even breathe, just sit in the presence of the men breathing. Because I've had my own experience with rape as well when I was 19. So it was quite sexual, the sound, and it brought up so many uncomfortable feelings for me. And so I just sat there, and then like fast forward a few more months, and I was in Bali, and I went into a breathwork session with a man guiding me. So I went from not being able to be in the room with men to just being in a room with a man and feeling safe and total love and appreciation and gratitude. You know, even him having his hand like on my stomach as well, and being able to hold him and it be genuine, not like tense in my body and scared, but just grateful. So
you can't fake that, can you?
No. You can't just pretend that it's okay. Like, you actually have to go through the journey and healing to feel it. Yeah.
Because I think that's the big thing now. We get so distracted with, and that's what we were talking about before this started, was you can go somewhere and you can distract yourself with so many different things. And I wrote this thing down the other day where I think the 3 biggest things that people distract themselves with at the moment are drugs, photos, and smiles. And it's like you can hide so much in all 3 of those things. And you're not only distracting yourself, but you're distracting the people around you that you could give them the opportunity to help you, but they can't see it. So it's when you post the happy photo, or you are on drugs, or you're drinking, or you're smiling all the time, what's behind that? And you're not giving people the opportunity to help you. And that's not to say that you just want to go around being sad all the time, but people can see that, and people will probably try and help. But instead of doing that, people don't want to feel that, and they don't want to, some people don't even want help, but even when they know they really need it, because they don't want to burden others. But it's like you said, you have to feel it, you have to go through it, and it sucks. It's not a nice feeling, but coming out the other side is going to be so much better than just prolonged fear and judgment and all these other terrible emotions that come along with hiding and pushing down these emotions that you're like, you know deep down that you have to feel. How was that? Because you said you came out of it slowly. How was that, and how much did actually doing the breath work? Because breath work puts you back in those moments, so it's like you're not only feeling it, you're getting taken back to those moments. So you're like, it's like you're enhancing how that feeling is anyway. So what is that? What was that like?
The breath work that I did, he was called Brian. The breath work that I did with Brian.
So that's just the most un-breath work teacher name I've ever heard. This is Brian. He's a like.
You're expecting like mountain.
Something.
Name's Mountain. Yeah, thanks, Brian.
Yeah, Brian. You know, programs computers on weekends, breath work on the weekdays. You know, he's a good guy. Yeah.
He's a good guy.
He's a great guy.
He is actually a great guy.
I'm getting him on the podcast, actually.
You are?
No.
Oh, I was like, how did you know him? Wait a minute, just for.
Bali's a small place. We've talked about this.
I really feel like he puts his heart and soul into what he's doing. But we were having conversations before about karmic agreements and kind of this world being like a school, you know. And that conversation probably influenced my breathwork journey. I don't care because it was phenomenal. Because I went into the breathwork journey and I actually experienced my rape in a different way. And I was in the moment of being raped, and his soul saying to my soul, "Are you ready?" And my soul saying yes. And it blew open the room that I felt really trapped in. to then suddenly feeling really empowered. And me personally, I gained a lot from the breath work, because I see that every experience that I've been through has been something that has built me. And, you know, I don't know if this is for everybody, but I do take a lot of like gratitude from everything I've been through, and a lot of power. Like I'm also going through an investigation with what happened, so I'm gaining my expression where I hadn't gained or had expression, and also seeing things in a different way. I felt guilty for going to the police beforehand, because I was like, I don't want to put another person in jail. Instead, now I'm like, no, we all have our own soul journey, and I'm staying true to mine, and mine is about expression and freedom and integrity. And how can I ever be a good example for somebody else if I'm not able to do the thing myself? So it created an amazing like ripple effect, like a chain effect from the breath work. In the breath work, I experienced being in front of the higher power and feeling love and worthiness, and seeing my ancestors. And there was a woman, and she put her hand on my face and she smiled this huge smile, and she was like, I love you. And yeah, I went into the jungle, and then I was amongst the animals, and it was just this insane experience.
Do you feel more connected with everything in those moments?
Yeah. And even after, when I came out of the breath work, was something that I couldn't deny, because everything outside, the colors were brighter. Like I felt. You
felt it, yeah.
Yeah. In this kind of plane, not just with my eyes closed.
Yeah. I try and push it to so many people, and I'm such a big advocate, but there's so much healing you can do just through your own breath.
Yeah.
Like people are like, how do I make my life better? How do I get better? And it's like, learn how to breathe properly, and like channel it and use it.
Yeah.
Because there's so much power, and there's so much healing, and there's so many things that are in the breath. But you have to understand it will bring stuff up.
Yeah.
That you have to be ready to face and deal with and go through. And if you're not, it's like anything. It's like a lot of the time the things you need to heal from are going to have a lot of pain attached to them. So it's like you are healing yourself, but you're kind of opening the wound at the same time to heal it. It's funny, like when you talk about the feeling you get out of the breath work and how it took you back to that time. I had a really bad mountain bike accident recently, like 9 months ago now, and I was like paralyzed from like the neck down. So my body got completely shut off. I thought I broke my neck. I thought I was never going to walk again.
That's so scary.
It's the most scared I've ever been by far. And it's funny when I do the breath work, like I do like a Wim Hof breath work, and I go quite deep with it. And the feeling of the breath work when you go really deep is your body shutting off. So when I go really deep, it takes me back to when I was laying on the ground and I thought I was paralyzed. So it's this double-edged sword where I'm putting myself directly back in the most traumatic experience I've ever been through. And I'm so grateful, because it gives me this perspective of it takes me back to that exact moment and that exact feeling, and not thinking I was going to be able to walk again, not thinking I would be able to do all this stuff, and then putting myself straight back there, but then realizing that I've kind of gotten a second chance and I'm back to where I am now. But when the first time I ever did breath work after the accident happened, it was like a shock, because I was like, fuck, I'm here again. And it was like you said, it takes you back to that moment. Like you said, you went back to it, and you had to go back to it to then understand and appreciate and heal and move forward and keep moving forward. But you're very much going in like you're throwing yourself in the fire, and then it's like what you do with that. And it's, I guess, being that self-aware enough to know that this is good for me, as much as it's bringing up stuff that wasn't at a certain time in my life.
Yeah, I really believe in that our body holds memory, So if we're not releasing it, then it's staying in there somewhere and manifesting as illness and as cancer. And so that's why I feel like breathwork's incredible too, because you have such huge releases. Maybe you're screaming, maybe you're crying, maybe you don't even know where it's coming from, but the body is energetically releasing something. And also, we can be so dissociative. We can just disappear from our body sometimes, and breath work brings us back in. And it's like, no, it's uncomfortable, I want to go up here. But coming back to our body more and more. I think with complex PTSD, like prolonged childhood trauma, if we're able to be in a relaxed body, then we are less likely to be diagnosed with complex PTSD, less likely to have emotional flashbacks, because we're not in a state of survival and fear. We're like, oh, I'm safe. And our body reacts to that. And yeah, I think breath work is phenomenal. And, again, it's like a process. I am not perfect at staying on top of all of these things, but I know how good they are for me.
Yeah.
And I definitely would recommend them to everybody as well.
Do you have a certain method of breath work you do? Is there a certain one that you follow, or do you do different ones depending on your mood or what you want to get out of it?
So I don't know if there's a specific name, maybe you can tell me, where it goes belly, chest.
Yeah. I don't know the name of it, but I know what you're saying. It's like two in and then one out.
And that has been the most powerful one for me. And what happens is I get a really big pain in my vagina when I do it. It's so painful that I feel like I can't continue with the breath work. I can't continue, and I have to go through the pain in order to be able to be in a state where I feel capable of continuing, and I guess relaxed in it in some way. But I get this pain, and then I get this feeling that I'm giving birth. It's really, it's really strange. So what would happen too, before, when I was doing breath work with another lady, she would say I would disappear. She's like, where do you go? You just dissociate, I'm gone. And she has to come and wake me up, keep breathing. I just hold my breath. So I've definitely had experiences with it, which make me really curious as to what's happening in my body. Yeah. And I have my ideas, and I believe that we hold a lot of trauma in the hips, and also being a woman and also going through rape, I believe that what's happening in my breathwork is potentially that I'm again going back to memories and then releasing those energies. But yeah, it's powerful stuff.
It's so powerful. I remember the biggest shift that my emotions went from being anxious, sad, jealous, envious, all these different emotions. I was coming out of a relationship that was failing, and I felt all these emotions towards this person, and I knew I needed to do something. And I was actually out at a party, and I was on a bit of a level, and I was I should do breath work now. For whatever reason, I thought I should do breath work. So I got 7 of my friends, and we all did this long breath work. And I just went really deep, like you said, where do you go? And I remember in the last one, I just did went as hard as I could, and then I just held my breath. And I don't know how long I held my breath for, but I came back to my friends over the top of me being like, Dean, are you okay? And for however long I was in that state for, I remember I shed and lost every bit of anger, jealousy, everything in my body left me, and I came back and I felt so connected with everyone. I felt connected with myself. I felt like me again. I found myself again in that, whatever that time was where I went. I remember just seeing these do you remember Mario Kart? Yeah. Rainbow Road on Mario Kart? I felt like I was on Rainbow Road, and I was going through this light, and I was just going through there, and just everything just fell away. And I just found me again, and I came out, and it's the biggest shift from feeling negative emotions to feeling extreme love and positive emotions. And I was literally myself again. The girl, I completely forgave everything that I was holding on to, and it was completely fine, and we became friends after that. But I like needed to go through that. So I can understand when you say that, when you go somewhere and like you say, you question that, like where am I going and what is that? And how do I go there, and how do I find ways to get there more often? But just in that, it's like that's why I guess I recommend for anyone that's going through something, because that was the biggest shift in emotions. Like I've been happier before, but I've never been so unhappy to then so happy in the course of 15 minutes. Like I've never had that shift that big, and you start to realize how much power you possess in yourself through doing something like that, through being with your own breath or your own thoughts or whatever it may be, and learning ways to unlock those things. So like you say, it's like, it's so powerful.
I felt a bit teary as you were speaking. I was like,
you felt that, yeah. I was gonna ask you a question. So I saw a video that you put up, and it says, we no longer live on what we have, but on promises. What does that mean?
To me, that means that I'm going to put it in the context of giving our power over to a corporation, a government, and the promise of something better. Instead of, wow, I haven't sat with that actually properly, because at the time when I was reading it, I think I was in a place of discovery and really trying to understand how. I need a moment with this one.
It's okay, we've got time. Do you find there's something in that? Because I heard this thing, and it's like, we're not promised tomorrow. And we always have this idea that we have more time and we have more things to look forward to. And we get so caught up on what's next. And we lose sight of what we have right now. And you lose the moment. And I think so many of us, I know myself included, is we put our happiness in the future. And it's, I'll be happy when I get this job, or I'll be happy when I've got my wife, I'll be happy when I get to Bali, or when I get to, and it's like, if you're not happy right now, you won't be happy then. There'll be another mountain to climb that will have your happiness. So it's like, once you realize that you only have now, that's where your happiness is, not in this future idea of where you see yourself in this perfect life or this perfect person that doesn't actually exist. It's all just like a mirage you keep walking towards, and then it keeps changing, and then you walk towards another mirage, and then it changes again, and you're like, you're just going to always be walking into something that's not actually real, unless you kind of start looking at where you are right now and looking at what you do have, not what you don't have, and appreciating that. That's what I kind of got from when I saw that.
So at the time, it really resonated with me differently. But as you're speaking, and you're talking about like being in the here and now, there's so much to talk about, I feel like, with that. Because I feel like if we're able to fully accept ourselves as we are, all different parts of ourselves, accept where we are in life and find gratitude for that too, be in the here and now, because we could look towards the future constantly like looking here and never being in our bodies, and then the inevitable is we're going to die. So you might as well live while you're living, right? And I think going back to presence also goes back to what we were talking about with being in the body as well. I think that once also you are able to accept yourself and be here and now, I feel like everything starts to shift anyway. So you end up, I guess, like going into like manifestation, right? I feel like being in a frequency where you're grateful for everything as is, like the small things you have even, then you attract other things anyway, because you're in a kind of like a state of love.
I think with the manifestation, because I know that's like such a buzzword now that gets thrown around, but I just look at it as like it's what you focus on. Like what do you focus on? Like manifesting is just focus. Yeah. It's like you're focusing on a good outcome, you're probably going to get the good outcome. Like I read this thing, it's like you normally hit what you aim for. And we always aim, well, not always, but a lot of us aim for the negative. We look at the fall, we look at the fear, we look at if this doesn't work out. And as soon as you start looking at it, the only way it can work out is the way you want it to. That's normally how it will go. And people will see that. People will see when you're focused on the positive, not the negative, and then they'll be attracted to that. And then they're going to be more likely to help you. Like it's like so many little examples of when you see other people, like when you see someone that's focused on they're going to be late, or something that got cancelled, or something didn't get booked, or something. I'm like, that's completely out of your control. You can't change that. You can just you focus on what you can control, and if you focus on the positive of a situation, then that situation is going to be positive. If you focus on the things that are out of your control that you can't, then it's going to be a negative experience. And just the manifesting word gets thrown around, which I understand what you mean by it, but it's like, what are you focusing on your life? Like, what are you focusing on, the fall, or are you focusing on, like, just imagine you're on a tightrope. Are you going to focus on walking on the bit, like the tightrope, to get to the other side, or are you going to focus on the fall? As soon as you look down, you're going to fall. So it's like focus on the thing that you need to achieve, not the thing that could come from not achieving it. And once you do that, I think that's the whole idea of manifesting. But like you say, it's such a buzzword.
I guess because it's become so used, then maybe it can feel as though it's losing its power, the word. I make jokes with friends about the word abundance too. It's like, this is my dog, it's called Abundance. You know, my password, abundance. Like, but so I think maybe sometimes people can maybe disconnect because of the use of it, but it still has power. It still has power, And I like the way that you're kind of reframing it to make it like digestible. So people that might get sick of hearing, it's just focus. Manifesting is just focus wrapped in a different shell. I just feel like, I always think, like, what are you focusing on? Are you focusing on the negative or the positive? And just that alone will change your entire life. And I have to catch myself all the time about, like, if you start something new, what happens if it doesn't work out? What happens if the girl says no? What happens? It's like, then you just deal with that situation. Like, focusing on something that, it's like you're focusing on a reality that doesn't exist. And then by focusing on the reality that doesn't actually exist, you're then creating it. So it's like, you are the creator of your world. You are the creator of everything you want. It's like, once you start putting energy into the way you want it to go, it'll start going that way. It's like, it's very simple, but I know it's easy to say, it's harder to do, because I will have self-doubt all the time about everything. Even, for example, like reaching out to you to come on this podcast, like there's doubt in my mind. Like, I've never met you before, I got recommended to chat to you, but there is like a fear that comes along with putting yourself out there to have these conversations or do that. But I focused on what happens if it's the best conversation I've ever had. What if I learned so much from this? What if someone listening to this can then benefit their life in a positive way? And you look at all those, and then that's what you create. Where if I look at, oh no, she probably wouldn't even want to chat to me, I'm not even going to bother. Then you live in that reality of that not happening. So it's like the two mind shifts in there, and like how much better outcomes will come out of just focusing what could happen. Because it's like, I talked to Tom about this the other day, it's like, it's 50-50. It could go either like good or bad, but the more effort you put into focus on the positive, the more that percentage goes from 50-50. Okay, now maybe it's 90-10, or maybe it's 99-1, and it's like, it's so much more likely to go the right way. Have you felt that with, like, what is your relationship with self-doubt, and how have you combated that to silence that voice? Take risks, constantly take risks, and step into fear. I feel like I'm constantly challenging myself because I've had enough examples to show me that by doing that, then so much good comes from it.
Yeah.
So I've got to a point in my life where I fear rejection less. Because I know who I am and I know what I'm capable of, and if someone else can't see that, that's okay. That's fine. And like, even like, I guess with the podcast, you never know, maybe someone would say no, and then you build and you build and you build, and that person comes to you like, hey, you reached out that time, and I can see that you're doing an amazing job, I'd actually love to join. So just by taking that risk, you never know what the ripple effects are going to be. So just do the thing that scares you.
But even with the no, like, it doesn't matter.
No.
Like, that's the thing. It's like someone says no, and you're like, okay, go on to the next.
Yeah.
Like, I think a good tester that you can do is, if you're scared about doing something, play out the worst case scenario in your mind, and then realize that it still doesn't matter. Like, since I've been over here, because I've been just solo traveling, and sometimes it's hard to connect with people. And I wasn't really doing it to connect with people, but it kind of happened from doing it. But I just started writing little affirmations, like little notes, and I just go up to random people who are by themselves and just give them a note and just be like, have a nice day, and then walk away. And most of the time I wouldn't see them again, but there's been 2 occasions where I've seen the person again, like randomly, and I've gone up to them and said, hey, like, I gave you a note the other day, or I gave you a note before. How do you feel about that? And more times than not, they're like, oh, it's amazing. I actually needed that. Like, I really needed to read that right now. I really need to get that, whatever it may be. But the first note I gave out, I was really nervous. Like, I was so nervous. And then I was in my head, I was like, because it was just this girl at a cafe, and I was like, I'm not giving her my number. I'm not, like, there's nothing I want in return from this. I just want to give it to her. But I was still so nervous. But I was like, worst case scenario, she says, leave me alone, pepper spray. Well, maybe that could be actually pretty bad. Okay, so maybe she just like throws the note back at me, go away, you creep, or whatever. Makes a scene, like worst case scenario. But then it's like, oh, leave and go about my day. Like, it's not actually that bad. But and I knew that probably wouldn't happen. But we again come up with these ideas in our head that it's going to be so much worse than it is. And I just gave her a note, and she's like, what's this? I'm like, oh, it's just a note. Have a nice day. And then I left. And it's like, I don't know, like, I felt like she'd probably get a nice message. Like, it's just little things saying, like, keep going, you're doing great. Like, you'd be so proud of Youngie, you would be so proud. It's stuff like that. It's just going to maybe make someone asked me the other day where I get the inspiration to write these things. And I thought about it, and I was just like, these are all things that I feel like I need to hear right now. So it's like, if I need to hear this, someone else might need to hear that. So it's like, if you can give that to someone, it's like you're in turn healing someone else, and then healing other people, I feel like, is the best way to heal you. So it's like this ripple effect that then creates this, like, I know, symbiotic healing for everyone, and then it can actually flow on. So I think when someone else is going through, well, you don't know what they're going through. You never know what someone else is going through. So I think that's, if you can share love as much as possible, it's going to be more beneficial. But the whole point of that, there's still fear that comes from putting yourself out there, even when it is a nice gesture, because you don't know how someone might react. But now that, like you said, it's like the more you do it, now I don't care. Now I see someone and they're like by themselves or they're with a group, and I go, hey, have a note. And then I just leave. And it's like how quickly that fear can dissipate and go. Like you said, it's just like exposure therapy in fear as much as possible.
That's really beautiful.
I remember seeing someone do it on Instagram, and I was like, that's such a nice, and it's funny because I've given them out and I've wanted to look back. Like, I've wanted to look back so badly to see the reaction or see if they said anything or like waved me back, and it's just like no.
Keep going.
Yeah, because I think so often, like, we all do something for, like, what do we get back out of it? And there's always this, you do something because of what the person might do, and I'm like, I wanted to do it. Like, obviously it gives me a good feeling handing them out, but I didn't want to just like give someone a note and be like, read it. How does it make you feel? Because that's like, then you're doing it for how you're going to be received, not just doing it because it's a nice gesture and you want to make someone else feel good. So I always get very, what would you say, it's like, you know, when you're doing something right, but you're doing it so people see that you're doing something right.
Yeah.
And like I always get like such conflicting thoughts. It's like giving to charity, but then telling everyone you're giving to charity. You know what I mean? It's like, it's a good thing, but are you just doing it so you can tell people? Like, how often do you see people, they just do something nice for someone so they can take a photo of it and tell people that they did something nice for someone? And I always have these conflicting thoughts of like what's wrong and right, and how much of doing something nice and showing people is like a good net positive, because then it might encourage someone else to then go do something nice. And it's that balance between how much are you doing just for you and how much are you doing so other people see you.
Yeah.
And that's something I've always battled with.
I've kind of had that before, right? Where it says, there's been like quotes talking about this specific thing. And I think that if by doing something good, you receive something good, what's so bad about that? What's so bad about feeling good for doing something good? I remember hearing something about like, you know, humans can't be selfless. Everything's selfish. You know, this word selfish, we put such a negative connotation on it. If connotation is even the right word.
Yeah,
Just fling some words out there.
Manifesting.
I think it's the right word. We put
Abundantly manifesting.
we make the word selfish seem really negative. But there are so many moments in my life where I'm so happy that I was selfish and I needed to be selfish. I needed to put myself first. And by putting myself first, I was then able to give to others from a full cup. So I think, you know, as long as you know within yourself and you have that level of self-awareness to give and to receive, I think it's beautiful.
To do both, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I came back to the realization that if you're doing it when no one's watching and you're doing it when people are watching, I think that's when you know you're doing the right thing. I think if you look at your life and you go, I only ever do this when the cameras are on or when people are around or when I know I'll be seen doing it, then I think that's when you question it. But if you're doing it all the time, like that's who you are as a person, then it's like, okay, that's who you are as a person.
Yeah.
But I think it just comes back to your why behind it. Like, why am I doing this? Am I doing this for me or am I doing this for others? And I think it's not a bad thing to do it for others, but if that's the only time that you are doing it, then maybe you need to question a little bit deeper about what it is. Another thing you put up that I saw was you talking about how technology is actually making our lives like it's speeding it up, not slowing it down. Like you're talking about, I think I wrote it down. It's technology is actually leaving us with less time, and it's changing the tempo. What did you mean with that?
So personally, I'm really overstimulated by technology, and it also can become like an addiction. It can become a way to dissociate. It can be taking us further away from nature. I am such a nature advocate. I feel like there's so much healing that can be done just by being in silence in nature and coming away from the phones and the laptop and actually being with yourself, like feeling your intuition, because I feel like technology can really cut us off from ourselves. And there are lots of positives from technology. I mean, this moment is happening because of technology. Because you got in contact through a social media app that has been created by something, and it's still a creation somebody has created. But I do feel like it drives anxiety, and we have to. It'd be beneficial to be able to like create boundaries with technology.
How much do you feel like technology and love get like it's like diluting what it actually means to feel those things and be present. It's like, I guess in the way of technology's making it easier to have more connections, but harder to have real ones. How do you feel with that?
I think it goes back to like the transient nature of social media and relationships. I guess, like, imagine being in a small town and meeting somebody and getting to know them, and then, you know, that the amount of energy you invest into that person, into building something. And social media can be something that's like so many options, and then you can get distracted. But I do feel like it always really comes back to like personal responsibility. Yeah. Because there are people on social media who are, you know, extremely dedicated to their relationships still. So I feel like we all have a responsibility when it comes to social media and ourselves, and, you know, how we are in relationships, instead of just following like big booties and big...
Yeah. I guess it's also the stories we create through social media that aren't real. Like when it becomes to like love or connection, like you can see something that someone posts, and then that can get stuck in your brain and take you down a path that doesn't actually exist, and you can come up with these different ideas of what's real and what's not. And it's like you said, if you're in a small town and you put all your focus into someone, like how often do you meet someone and you're like, oh my God, this person was amazing, and you're so intrigued and fascinated with this person, and then you go home and then you go on Instagram, and then there's all these other people that are just like in your face, and it's like you don't actually get to sit in that feeling of, oh my God, that was amazing, like we just went on this date, or we just went and did something, and you, as soon as you go home, there's another person. It's like, how do you drown that noise out of having so many distractions and get that deeper level of connection and not feeling like the grass is always greener or there's someone else out there? Because I heard this thing the other day, was like when you date so often and with so many different people, you pull little bits of each person out to try and create this perfect person. So you meet someone and like, oh, he's got big muscles, I like that about him, but this other guy is really connected with his family, I like that. Oh, but this guy has a nice car, or whatever it is, and you're trying to build this perfect person. And because dating's so easy and accessible now, that everyone's trying to build this perfect person that is actually, again, an illusion, because they don't exist. And to build that perfect, or a version of a perfect person, you need to actually start with one person and build that, instead of trying to take 10 different people or however many people you might be dating and taking all the best parts of them. It's like you've got to take the good and the bad, and you've got to be able to accept the bad that they bring and then work on making that better.
Yeah, because you desire that from somebody else with you, right? Because I'm not perfect. And so therefore, for somebody to accept me, I would hope that I would be able to accept them and all of their parts.
And making you feel safe to be that you're an imperfect person, and for them to see you for being that person and being accepting of, I see who you are, good and bad, and I still want to be here.
I think that's like true healing. I believe that relational trauma is healed through relationships, and that exact thing of being able to accept someone as not perfect. Yeah,
and give them the space to like openly be like, I don't know why I'm like this, but then dig into it and be like, let's unpack, like let's understand this, because so many people go through relationships on autopilot, and like I said before, like hurt people, and they don't even understand why, and they don't go into why. They just keep on this loop of like, well, this happened to me when I was younger, so then I'm going to show up. And I've done this to people. Like I've been really badly hurt and then put up a wall, but then still try to date and then hurt other people because they hadn't actually healed the things that I needed to heal. And it's so often that it's kind of funny that I think 4 or 5 of my ex-girlfriends, the person after me, they got married to or had kids with. And I talked to someone about this and they're like, oh, you're a healer. And I was like, what do you mean? It's like, well, you obviously helped them see the thing that they needed to fix in themselves, then show up properly in a relationship, and that's what they obviously did. And I was like, oh, I never looked at it like that. And then me and my ex-girlfriend broke up end of last year, and she showed me things that I needed to heal in me, and I was like, oh, I see it now. Like, I see what she needed to show me for me to show up in a relationship how I should show up. But it's like, you need someone to like shine a light on your imperfections, on your issues, on your things that you don't want to see, that are like you try and hide under the rug for a certain amount of time, and then realize that the only way to fix it is going through it instead of trying to hide it. But sometimes you need those people to come in and be able to create a space where you can feel seen and heard and not judged, to then do the healing. And those people are hard to find.
Yeah, I feel like I pop my ears. I feel like relationships and heartbreak are like huge catalysts for growth, because in a relationship, if there's two willing people, then you're constantly growing and changing. Yeah, if there's like unwillingness to grow, then it's usually the heartbreak that kind of ignites, from my experience anyway.
Yeah, I feel that.
Ignites the growth and the healing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Heartache's a motivator. It will make you, trust me, I feel that. Yeah, like it makes you change the things that you know you need to change, or it makes you reconnect with who you are. It's just pain. Hey, do you know who Paul Chek is?
Paul Chek.
He's like a holistic health coach. You really like his work.
Yeah, maybe I'd know better.
He has like an institute called the Chek Institute, where he helps a lot of people. He's a really wise person, but he talks about like the pain teacher, and you will keep going through pain your entire life until you decide to change. And the more pain you go through, the more teaching you'll probably get. So it's like everyone changes when they can't deal with that amount of pain anymore. So it's like heartache throws a lot of pain at you, but you get a lot out of it if you look hard enough and don't just block it out with other things. So yeah, it's the best and worst thing. Like you said, it's terrible when you're feeling it, but then it's great when you're coming out of it.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you as well, with your modelling, how has that been going through the world of modelling? Because I've recently, with my studio I've created and that, I've been more in the world because I was obviously very much not invested in it. And it seems very surface level to a certain extent. And seeing as you seem like a very open-minded and I'm not going to say out there, but like very open person in a world that seems very surface level, how's that been to navigate through that and see it for what it is, but then also know how to separate from it?
Yeah, I've been going through conflict within myself, because there are lots of positives to it. I get to live a life of travel. I get to meet creatives, and I love creatives. I love the creative mind. I get to meet so many incredible women, because, you know, there are so many beautiful, incredible minds who are also models. And I think the stereotype is like, oh, you know, pretty and dumb. But like some of my closest friends are models. And
it's nice when the exterior matches the interior.
Yeah.
It's like the beauty's not just on the outside.
Yeah. And like a lot of
you feel that, hey?
Yeah, like I think it lights me up too, because like a lot of the girls I've met also don't want to model. They're like, this is helping me through my studies. This is helping me get to this. This is, you know, it's sometimes a stepping stone.
Yeah.
But anyway, my personal experience is like, it's been a real like look in the mirror for me, because it's brought up all of my insecurities, my limiting beliefs, my like unable to hold my boundaries, and it's taught me to stand up for myself more, because I've also had experiences where it's maybe not been a very nice environment to be shooting in, and there's some people with bad intentions, and it's definitely grown me, and it's also brought me into environments where maybe before I would have looked up to and been like, oh my god, like, you know, the celebrity bubble even, and then being with those people, and it's just like, everyone's human, And the conflict for me comes in when I don't particularly want to wear or advocate fast fashion. And being in Bali, it's really lovely because I get to do like organic skincare, organic clothing, and I've always seen modeling as a platform for me. But I've got to a point where I'm like, okay, you know, it's time to use it. Yeah. Like, so I'm modeling so that I can pay for something that feels more purposeful, the podcast studios, and starting to put myself into a direction that feels more aligned. At the same time as the conflict has been so hard that I've had to change my perception of it and start looking at the positives that it's bringing me, so that it makes the transition easier as well. Because there are so many positives in it, but I was getting a bit stuck with the negative aspects which weren't helping me.
Do you feel like people are putting you in a box? Like being a model, like you get put in this, like you said, box, like this is who you are and this is what you do. It's like pretty object, but...
Sometimes, yeah. I remember being on a job and and I was posing and the owner of the company was telling me to do something, but the director of photography was telling me to do another thing. So I do what I'm being told by the photographer at the time. And I start getting clicked at. And then he makes a comment, the owner of the company, saying, like, I've paid for you. You know, do what I say. And in that moment I was like, wow, I feel like an object. And you know, now I'd be like, excuse me, don't speak to me like that. You know, I'm very happy to not get paid and leave than be disrespected and not spoken to like a human. But before I couldn't find my voice, you know. So I do feel like there were kind of moments maybe of feeling kind of like an object of some kind, and you know, it's a lot of energy too, like people touching you and but right now where I'm at with it, like I feel really free in my choices, and like I have incredible conversations with the creatives and the brand owners and things like that. So like right now I feel like really good within it, and I think it's probably a large element of like enjoying the hearing stories about the companies, because they're all kind of like trying to find alignment in doing good.
Where do you see it going for you? Like where do you see like long term? Do you want to stay in it, or just be more aligned with brands that align with your values and what you want?
I want to stop modeling, and I'm in this transitional period right now. A part of me believes in just like doing the thing, taking the risk, and just like dropping everything. But at the same time, I've done that so often in my life too. I'm like, no, Sasha, like it's okay to ease into things. Still taking a risk, but I'm easing and I'm creating like a cushion for myself. Because I've just been mad in life sometimes, you know. Still believe in taking risks.
Bit of both.
Yeah.
A little bit of both.
But I remember doing kind of like a prayer, and I said I want to call in more things that are to do with performing that feel aligned with me, because I do love to like perform and play different characters and things like that. And then a few days after that, I had a message on Instagram from a film director. And what's come of it is I'm now going to be playing a lead role in a film, which I'm really excited about, a feature film. And then there's also another film that he's filming, and I'm playing another character in that one. And the one where I'm the lead, it's about a girl's spiritual journey. And
So it aligns.
It's aligned.
Just play me.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I'm like, cool, this is working. I can do that. And then the
I'm great at that.
Yeah, and then the second one again, it's like, it's something that feels really aligned. So I feel like I'm still gonna be playing with these kind of characters maybe, because even modeling is like you're playing a character. And the thing that I can find difficult is, you know, not being able to show up authentically on a shoot, because sometimes I feel shit and I still gotta smile. But yeah, so it's all coming. Doors are opening. I'm also trying to be really open in that, like, who knows where things will lead, and surrender to that. But yeah, the idea is to kind of like leave modeling as it is right now, and maybe be able to collaborate with companies and brands that I feel aligned in other ways, in ways that feel more authentic and are more about like how I want to portray something, and less of like how, like,
You want more of your creative spark mixed to tie in with it.
yes.
Yeah. I see that. You don't want to just be going along with someone else's idea. You want it to be your, like, our idea, not your idea. I see that.
Yeah.
I think you just, being a creative person, you want to put your own spin on it. I see that. I'll ask you a few more questions before we finish. With the hiccups. What are you scared of?
I'm scared of being misunderstood. It's like something I'm working on. It can really hold me back because I have this fear of showing up as myself fully, authentically, because of the fear of being misunderstood. And so I'm still doing it. I'm still like showing up authentically, but there's also parts of myself I'm still holding back, and it's a process for me. But the wound feels like quite a deep one. And what's helping is...
But you can't control you can only control what you put out. You can't control if people understand
exactly
what you put out.
Yeah, and I'm well aware of that. It's more, it's a bodily sensation. So it's like I know within my mind that I can't control what other people think. Everyone's having their own experience. I cannot please everybody. The people who really truly know me are the people that I want in my life. And as I show up more authentically as myself, then my tribe is going to gravitate towards me. I know it all. And then the bodily sensation is fear. So it's still something of me stepping more and more into it and reminding myself more and more, and exploring it. And yeah, so I feel aware of that.
You are aware, but you're still stepping into it though.
Yeah.
I read another thing and I was really interested by this one, but you're talking about, where is it? Talking about like helping, the thing was having a nicer seat on the Titanic. You're talking about when it's sinking. I can't remember sorry, I didn't write down the whole thing there, but it was out of the video you posted, and you were talking about having... from
the book. Okay, so you're pulling quotes from books I was reading. Yeah. So that book was The Wave Integrity by Martha Beck.
Yeah, but it's just that line, it's like trying to get a better seat on that Titanic. It just hit me because it's like, are you saying that because it's like it's sinking, and it's like you want a nicer seat than something that's going to be over anyway? Is that like what I found? I don't know, that one just like stuck with me.
Yeah, I have to remember the full thing. So what the kind of the paragraph that I was reading?
I can maybe play it if you would, like, if you want.
Yeah, sure, go for it. I know what the book...
Because I heard that and it was like...
To see on the Titanic. You can't, because she was saying about you can't build a plane out of broken parts.
But on promises.
Is it this one?
No longer in the light of the present day.
It's not that one?
No, it is the way of integrity.
Looking at the scale and intensity of humanity's problems, it's easy to panic or despair. What can you personally do to help? One tiny person among more than 7 billion. It may seem that following your own way of integrity
Oh no.
will only give you a slightly...
just give you a slightly more comfortable seat on the Titanic.
Yeah. So, it's kind of like, how can one person being in integrity impact the world, right? It can feel like being in integrity is only going to give you a slightly more comfortable seat on the Titanic, as in it's all going to go down. Yet, what the book's exploring is that by being in truth and in integrity with yourself, things around you can crumble or feel like they're crumbling, but actually it's the people who aren't meant for you are leaving. The situations, the environments, everything that isn't meant for you is going to leave, and then that's going to make space for all the things that are meant for you. And how one person in integrity, and then another person in integrity, and another person. Imagine the ripple effects. That impacts another person, that impacts another person. So, I think this specific quote is encouraging people to speak their truth and be in integrity, and that it does make an impact, and that we do have a responsibility.
Even though the ship is sinking.
Even though the ship is...
I like that. I was going to ask you, if you could go back and teach younger Sasha a lesson that would have benefited you, what would it be? If you could learn a lesson earlier.
Trust your intuition.
Follow it.
Yeah. Because, I'm grateful for all of the experiences that I've gone through, because I am who I am. Yeah, if I saw little me there, oh my gosh, I'd be like, baby. I'd say, beautiful girl, you are so powerful, you are so intelligent, you are so connected, and trust when your intuition says no, to follow that, because I would have saved myself a lot of painful experiences in relationships.
Because your gut knows.
Really soon. So, yeah, that would be definitely the biggest message.
My last one.
Yeah.
How do you want to be remembered when you're no longer here?
I would like to be remembered as there's like an element of me that's like, it's okay, I don't need to be remembered.
Yeah.
But I hope that I can inspire people to love themselves more, and that it's possible for those people going through really hard times that it gets better. So I guess remembered as a light in someone's life in some way, however that may be. Yeah.
Yes. It's very similar to what I say. Like, that's my thing. Hey, it's just, be a light and help someone see a little bit further. If all the other lights are turned out, you can just be there and show them a little bit more. Yeah. Well, thank you for this.
Yeah.
I really, really enjoyed this. This has been really nice.
Yeah.
The first bed podcast I've done. But No, like
It's quite comfy though.
it's nice, yeah. And go on, but no, thank you so much. I think you speak with so much truth and honesty and calmness as well. It's really nice to be around someone and chat with someone that carries themselves the way you do, and generally just does want to help people get the most out of the life they live, because there is so much there, and there's so many people that know there's more there, but they can't access it because they don't have the tools. And I think you saying things you've just said can help someone more than you'd probably ever know. And it's just putting it out there to someone will probably find it at the right time and use it in whatever way they need to use it for.
Thank you.
That's okay.
My heart feels warm.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah, it's really inspiring what you're doing too.
Thank you.
And I appreciate you inviting me. Yeah.
Thank you. All right.
I'm going shy.
What's that?
I'm going shy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.